was already electric as Harrison Ford took his seat at the panel. Dressed in his usual understated style, the legendary actor was there to promote his latest project, but it became clear within moments that something else was brewing beneath the surface. Joy Behar, never one to hold back, greeted him with a sly smile and launched into what the producers assumed would be a playful exchange. "So Harrison, you've been flying planes, acting in blockbusters, and still somehow grumbling through interviews like you just got out of bed," Joy teased, clearly fishing for a reaction. The audience chuckled. Ford smirked, but there was a flicker of something sharp in his eyes, the kind of look that warned you not to poke too hard. "Well, Joy," he replied slowly, "at least I show up on time and sober, which I hear is more than can be said for some folks around here." The room fell silent. The laughter froze. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Joy's smile faltered for a moment, clearly caught off guard. "Okay. Wow, Harrison. I was joking. Just trying to loosen you up a bit," she said, her tone tight. Ford leaned back, folding his arms. "Yeah, well, maybe it's time someone loosened up the format of this show. You know, less scripted snark, more real conversation. Or are we just reading off cue cards today?" That line struck a nerve. Joy tried to recover. "Look, you're here because people respect you, Harrison. You've got an incredible legacy. But let's not pretend you've always been the easiest interview." Ford shrugged. "I'm not here to be easy. I'm here to talk about work. You invited me on, remember? I didn't come here to get roasted by someone who spends more time talking over guests than listening to them." The audience let out a collective "ooh," and the other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Sarah Haynes awkwardly tried to jump in. All right, let's pivot." But Ford wasn't done. "You want to roast people, Joy? Try stand up. But don't invite someone on your show and act surprised when they don't laugh at your punchlines, especially when they come wrapped in disrespect." Joy sat stiffly, eyes wide, while the audience struggled between gasps and unsure applause. Meghan McCain, no stranger to heated exchanges herself, bit her lip to suppress a grin. The producers scrambled in the control room, cutting camera angles quickly, trying to regain balance. But the damage was done. Ford had dismantled the usual banter and replaced it with an icy dose of authenticity, and the crowd knew they had just witnessed something real, raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. Backstage, crew members whispered in stunned disbelief. "Did that just happen?" one of them asked, peeking around the curtain. Ford adjusted his mic pack calmly and took a sip of water. He wasn't flustered. He wasn't angry. Just tired of the showbiz charade that often passed for journalism. When they cut to commercial, the set remained tense. Joy remained silent, trying to collect herself. Harrison gave a polite nod to the other co-hosts, then leaned into his chair, completely unfazed, as if the whole thing had been just another scene in a long career. And just like that, the legendary actor had shifted the power dynamic live on air. Not with a shout, not with drama, but with the same quiet intensity that had made him famous. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or gasp. All they knew was they had witnessed something extraordinary. And it wasn't even halfway over. The tension backstage was palpable. Prince Harry's unexpected exit had left the late night with Seth Meyers' crew scrambling. Producers were whispering furiously into earpieces, trying to coordinate damage control while Seth sat at his desk with a stunned look, the applause sign blinking uselessly above the audience. Moments earlier, the Duke of Sussex had removed his mic mid-interview and walked off stage, leaving behind confusion, discomfort, and a storm of speculation. It hadn't started badly. In fact, the interview opened on a warm note. Seth had greeted Harry with genuine enthusiasm, even cracking a joke about royal titles and Netflix deals. Harry played along, relaxed in a navy button-down, sipping from his signature mug. But then Seth decided to go there, an attempt to mix late-night humor with current affairs that went sideways fast. "So, Harry," Seth said, smiling a little too brightly, "you've made quite a career pivot, from royalty to streaming content. Is it safe to say Meghan's the real CEO at home?" The audience laughed nervously, sensing the sharp edge beneath the joke. Harry chuckled politely. "We're a team," he said simply. Seth didn't stop. Right, but I mean, let's be honest. When people think of you two, she's the powerhouse. You're kind of the sidekick now, yeah. Like Robin to her Batman. The air thinned. Harry's smile vanished. Is that what this is? A comedy bit at my expense? He asked, his tone still calm but visibly controlled. Seth tried to recover with a grin. Hey, I'm just saying what the tabloids say, don't shoot the messenger. But Harry leaned forward, his voice cool. You invited me here to talk about my foundation, about mental health, about veterans. Not to reduce my marriage to a punchline or treat me like a punch-drunk ex-royal in a talk show circus. The audience was dead silent. No one moved. No one laughed. Seth, caught between his format and the fallout, tried a final pivot. I mean, come on, Harry. People just want to see the human side of you. You know, laugh a little. Harry stood up. No, they want to see honesty. They want to know that even the so-called privileged can struggle, can grow, can walk away from toxic systems. But what they don't want, what I won't do, is sit here while you disguise mockery as entertainment. With that, he removed the mic from his lapel, set it gently on the desk, and walked off stage. Not a dramatic storm out. No slammed doors or shouted words. Just quiet conviction. Backstage, Meghan had been watching from the green room. As soon as he stepped off stage, she stood up and greeted him with a simple, "You all right?" Harry nodded. I'm done playing their game. The clip exploded online before the show even aired. Social media was instantly divided. Some applauded Harry's composure and his refusal to be publicly belittled. Others accused him of being too sensitive, unable to take a joke. But the common denominator was the viral magnitude of the moment. Everyone was talking about it. Seth addressed it briefly the next night. Well, that escalated quickly, he said, attempting levity. Prince Harry, if you're watching, maybe next time we'll just talk about polo. But Harry wasn't watching. He was in New York the following evening, giving a powerful speech at a charity event, using the same voice that walked off a comedy stage not in anger, but in dignity. The message was clear. He may have left the royal palace, and now he'd walked off a talk show stage, but at every turn, Prince Harry was defining manhood, fatherhood, and leadership on his own terms. And this time, with the whole world watching. Wasn't just a headline, it was a cultural flashpoint. Within hours of the late-night episode taping, news outlets ran with every angle: royal meltdown, talk show ambush, Prince versus punchline. But what few knew was that Harry had been teetering on the edge of that moment long before he stepped onto Seth Meyers' stage. In the days that followed, palace insiders and Hollywood sources alike weighed in. One producer who had worked with the Sussexes on a documentary admitted anonymously, Harry's always been game to talk, but only if there's respect. That night, something in him just snapped. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed. Seth Meyers, feeling the heat of the backlash, reached out privately to Harry the next morning. The message was sincere, if a little cautious. Hey Harry. Last night went sideways. Didn't mean to offend. Would love to talk things through if you're open to it. But Harry didn't respond. Instead, he and Meghan arranged for a sit-down interview with a respected journalist, not for damage control, but to reclaim the narrative. The interview aired 3 nights later, drawing record viewership across streaming and cable. No frills, no clever edits, just Harry, raw and clear-eyed, speaking plainly. When I walked off that stage, he said, I wasn't walking away from Seth. I was walking away from a pattern, where vulnerability becomes comedy, and real issues get turned into punchlines. I've done that before, I won't do it again. He spoke about his work with veterans, his mental health struggles, the pressure of growing up in a spotlight that never blinked. If walking away makes me look weak to some, I'm fine with that. Strength, to me, is knowing when to stand up, and when to leave the table. The response was overwhelming. Social media shifted tone. Mental health advocates praised his composure. Celebrities voiced support. Even critics begrudgingly admitted it had taken guts. Seth, for his part, addressed the controversy on air again. This time, there was no joking. I misread the room, he said. And more importantly, I misread the man. Prince Harry came here to talk about serious things, and I tried to fold him into the comedy formula. That's on me, and I sincerely apologize. The audience gave a quiet, respectful round of applause. Behind the scenes, NBC executives were in crisis mode at first, worried about backlash, advertiser pullout, and image damage. But surprisingly, ratings had spiked. And what's more, public discourse was shifting. The Harry incident had tapped into something deeper, a growing intolerance for mockery disguised as dialogue. A week later, Harry returned to public life with a quiet appearance at a community center in Newark, New Jersey, where he met with teenage fathers working through adversity. He shook hands, laughed warmly, and listened without pretense. No cameras, no press blitz, just presence. A local counselor asked him, "That thing with the comedian, was it as bad as it looked?" Harry smiled. "No worse than growing up royal." The room laughed, not at him, but with him. And that made all the difference. That night, back at their New York apartment, Meghan poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to Harry as he watched the skyline through the window. "You all right?" she asked again, just as she had backstage a week earlier. He nodded, this time with a deeper calm. "Yeah, finally." Because it wasn't just a walk-off. It was a turning point. Not in a career, but in a life.